Hi and welcome to IoT North. I'm Paul Wheels. Very glad to have you all here. We've got a stellar cast for our roundtable today. We're talking about what a customer's looking for from IoT. First of all, we have my good friend and counterpart for IoT North, John Staveley. Hi, John. How are you doing?
Good, yeah. I've just been busy setting up next month's meeting, which is by Mark Poos, who you'll meet in a minute, on the open source lamp stack for the Internet of Things. I've been playing with the Latte Panda, which is like a Windows IoT board that a client wants to productize and make a nice case for and put his IoT product on. So that's been quite fun. I look forward to the discussions today.
Excellent. John, you look like you've caught a bit of a tan. You've been enjoying that sunshine?
I went sailing on Sunday, so yeah, it was quite
more windswept than sun, huh?
Yeah, I'll be sailing kayaking across Scotland on 2 days' time.
Very nice. You'll be passing my hood. We've got Mark from Ballina. Hi, Mark. The legend is with us this week. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for inviting me, by the way.
Hey,
looking forward to go to Scotland or North UK.
Hey, always have a pleasure. And we've got an actual talk from you next month as well, haven't we?
Indeed, yeah. Looking forward to inspire other developers to join the IoT.
Excellent. Thanks for that. We've also got Evan from TD Cynics. Hi, Evan.
Guys, great to be here.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm spiffing.
Have you managed to have your vape before you come on screen?
I wasn't going to make that public knowledge, but yes, I did get past.
Anybody who's online, please do say hello. We will flash up the comments and respond to you. We want this an interactive show. We want you to have a chat with us. We're having an open discussion rather than the general format that we have. We try and do this on a quarterly basis. We've got more joining us today as well. We've got a real full roundtable. We've got Lucas. Hi, Lucas. How are you doing?
Hello, Ron. I'm perfect. And by the way, I love sailing as well. So would love to catch up on that one.
Sure, yeah.
Lucas, first time with us.
Yeah. So maybe a quick intro. I'm Łukasz Malinowski, the IoT advisor and trainer. I worked at AWS as an IoT consultant for the past 4 years. Before AWS, I was leading the team delivering IoT solutions, both using AWS and Azure clouds. And today, I work as independent advisor, helping customers to understand how they can leverage IoT technologies to generate business value and improve operations. Additionally, I lead training sessions to help people gain technical skills in the IoT area. So yeah, that's what I do, and I'm looking forward to today's conversation.
Excellent. Hey, really, really pleased to have you online with us this week. So thanks for making the time to join us. Really interested in the conversations we've already had and being able to share that with the audience. So thank you. And we also have something a little bit different for this show. We've got a customer with us, Mr. Paul Gaish. Hi, Paul. How are you doing? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, as Paul said, Paul Gaish, a customer interested in the whole world of the Internet of Things. So I work for a business called Warburton's, which is a bread manufacturer based in the UK. And we're looking to do some warehouse improvement work across our entire estate and think there's some value in using vision and Internet of Things to connect with any hardware or software that we've currently got in the business.
Excellent. Hey, thanks very much for joining us and making the time. So we'll get straight into it, where I'll fire a question. I'm going to go around the table and answers. What we'd love is for the audience to join in as well. Please do share your insights, and we'll share them up on screen and talk about them as well. Great to see some of the regulars on here. Hi, John. Great to see you online. We've got our good friend Dick, who's always got a good question. Is the importance of AI being overinflated? We'll bring that question back up, and we'll have a bit of a response on that one. I think it's a great question to ask. Rod, great to have you online. And there's a regular name here. That's Mark, which I believe is Mark in the top right corner. So thanks for saying hello there, Mark. Okay, let's fire ahead. First question is, actually, I should state, the opinions shared on the show are my personal opinions and not those of my employer, of the host, Intel. So now I've got that out of the way. We've got that done. Okay, so first question is... Yeah, always got to do that, mate. I've always got to cover me back with that one. Do we really know what customers really want? Or are we steering them based on technical availability to solve problems? Mark, what's your thoughts?
This is a very good question. So from my experience, actually now I work at Balena, but before that I created my own IoT company that I had to shut down 3 years ago. And what I discovered is that, I created my own company when IoT was a hype. And I think some of the companies or customers we had, they just wanted to get into this digital transformation thing. But they didn't understand that the importance of the IoT or digital transformation is to create a product or something that allows them to save money or make more money. And for me, this is key. Out of the technology, you have to understand if you want to digitalize any process that you have through the IoT technology, it's because of that. It's because of business purposes. We are going to save money or make money. And then we can discuss, if you have something clear on that terms, we can discuss how are we going to solve it, what technology are we going to use. And probably the most important is that you as a customer or as a in innovation department, whatever, you just trust the companies that you partner with.
So when you had your own company, and even with Balena, when customers have come with a problem statement, have you ever had an experience where you've tried to mold what you have to fit it? Or again, for those that don't know Balena, as a platform and stuff, you have a huge portfolio of partners that you can integrate with the microservices. Is there any gaps where you've actually tried to mold something to fit a customer's response where actually you knew somebody else had something that might be a better fit?
Balena is a very special company. So what we do is basically we have a platform to allow you to update the software running on your IoT devices. And what is special actually from Balena is that if the customer success team don't see that actually you need that or that Balena is a great fit for you, they tell you straightforward on the first meeting, I'm sorry, we are not the company that you need. And go and find someone else. Or even if I've been on first meeting with companies that were with leads that were saying like, we're going to connect the classical 1 million devices, blah, 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 but your service is super expensive. And the answer is like, oh, okay, so if you don't have a clear business model on your IoT product, and that means that like a tool such as updating the software running on your IoT devices, the business model on that tiny part doesn't fit on your complete business model for your IoT product or your IoT strategy, then go and find someone else. On my previous startup, actually, we tried to do whatever we could. And actually, I know IoT companies here from the Barcelona community who shifted from building IoT products towards services and consulting. Always selling their product, but just giving consulting.
No,
it's like
how do they get around the so if they're doing the consulting side, and I think this is one of the interesting things that jumps out to me, especially recently, that when I've worked on projects and we've been working one-on-one with a customer, and it's been a singular site or maybe two sites, it's not hard for us to be able to do the integration piece as well. When you then start looking at 20 sites and starting to do that, and then when you're starting to look into scale across multiple sites, it's then, do we have the personnel to do that integration? That's when you start to look at the scale and the relationships with it. Do you think that's one of the inhibitors in the adoption of IoT, that actually there's the software side of things, there's the hardware side of things, there's some companies that are offering black box solutions, but actually who does the integration, who can actually do that installation for customers?
I think this is one of the problems, and one of the main problems of what you describe is that some of the integrators don't have any clue about the IoT. So as they don't have any clue, this is getting super complex for the customer and creates a lot of frustration and a lot of friction. Actually, now I'm learning more and more about the Industry 4.0, industrial IoT. And I see that they are solving this solution. Actually, there was this friction on the previous Industry 3.0, if you want to call it, where all the integrators had to integrate like the ERP with the PLCs and all the systems, which is the description that you gave some minutes ago, that it's happening as well on the IoT today. And they are solving this, creating like using an MQTT broker, and everything goes there, and there is a single source of truth. So I can imagine in the future of the IoT, and that something like that can be a solution, just to reduce the friction on all the bits and bytes of the solutions and the products, and just to simplify what integrators need to do.
Yeah, Lucas, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so like from my experience, there are two types of customers. And the one type of customers is the one that wants to build a very specific technical solution, just because, let's say, the competitor got this technological stack. And for me, it's extremely hard to work with this type of customers, because like you can tell from the very beginning that we are building some technical solution without real value, without real problem, right? That's why I often say that we should not focus on the POC, the proof of concept, but POV, proof of value, right? And I try to make customer think about the value that they want to achieve using the IoT technology, right? So this is the one type of customer. And the other one is, which I love working with, those are the domain experts without any IT skills, right? They know everything about candy factory, let's say, right? And they just need someone that will guide them with the IT stuff, with the IoT, like the software, hardware, all of that, right? But they can clearly say what they want to achieve from the business perspective. And then we can basically work together. We can design solution, we can do implementation, all of that stuff. So like, yeah, and there are of course customers that don't really know what they want, right? And then you need to help them to define the business outcome they are after, and then design technology to meet that outcome.
Yeah, Paul, does that resonate with you?
Yeah, I agree with the points made. There's a specific set of things that the customer needs to do first. And I think we as a business did that quite well when we started talking to you, Paul, that we defined our problems incredibly well. We don't know what the solution is, but being able to describe the problems that you've got internally in your business, and then looking for partners to support you and make suggestions on what could the technical solution be. I think that's certainly the greatest start point that you can have, is really understanding what your own business problems are, without going into solution mode, and then looking for experts in whatever field that may be, and getting those suppliers and those people, or the businesses, engaged with you to look at your problems and say, I think I believe I can add value with this technical solution. And that's certainly the conversation me and you have had, Paul, of we've described what our Warburton's business problems are, and you and the people that you brought to talk to us as a business have suggested a technical solution that might be an answer or an enabler for us to start to understand and resolve some of our business problems.
Excellent. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think one of the things that I always loved doing, and it was nice to get back into it following COVID, was I've just seen Rob Tiffany's online. We should try and get him on here and get him involved with this conversation. But we, getting on site and just spending that time in the on the floor and seeing the actual movement happening and understanding. And it was absolutely amazing. I've got to say, it was one of the most impressive things I'd seen. Paul and I were having a conversation, and then he went, by the way, I've just watched that guy over there in the corner of my eye, and he's done this, and he's wasted 5 minutes on doing that. And we were talking about efficiencies and how he could help with that. And it was absolutely phenomenal that he could have a conversation with a couple of us, and he was still watching that poor guy in the corner of his eye. So lesson was learned. Never work for Paul, because he's watching you in every angle. Evan, how does the community with tech data sort of help bring things together? Because this is a huge ecosystem with IoT, right?
Yeah.
So how does TD Synnex approach this?
So I should point out we're called TD Synnex now, just in case any of our corporate are watching. But I think there's a few things here. If you look at an IoT platform these days, there's a number of different flavors. What we've seen is there are a number of ISVs that have cropped up that have domain-specific knowledge and have had access to and focus on a specific domain. Maybe it's retail, maybe it's warehousing, maybe it's transport. And those ISVs have maybe built on top of a horizontal platform or developed from scratch using platform services from AWS or Azure or whatever. But they have developed effectively a turnkey solution to solve what they see as common industry challenges. And then the technology decisions really come in from how do you integrate those endpoints and do that data acquisition, and then how do you do that little bit of customization for the customer in terms of how they want to present that insight or leverage that insight into that data into their other systems. So you have that piece there. Then you have the horizontal platforms, which are increasingly getting more and more no code or low code, shall I say. And then you have pure platform services. I think the more you move away from common industry challenges, the more you require breadth across that ecosystem to pull all those bits together, because you move outside of hardware certified for specific platforms, you get into more development requirements. And ultimately, when you're at that end of the spectrum, the prize should be big enough, right? So one of our bosses used to talk about complexity tax. Now, is the complexity tax that you're being introduced to from going off the beaten path worth the prize? So we see we have an ecosystem of vendors solving common industry challenges, some working in more, let's say, repeatable building block areas around IoT, and some working completely on the bespoke end of things. And outside of the platform itself, and obviously all the sensors and the edge infrastructure and the gateways, you obviously have, to the point of a few others that have brought it up on the call, then the extended delivery network that's required, especially at scale, to do all the truck rolls and either have kind of smart hands deployment of under-desk sensors for occupancy, or do deep PLC integration for automated environments, for processing environments, etc. So, I think the more you move away from common industry challenges, the more you need to lean on a wider infrastructure. So you just need to ask yourself, number one, as the IoT provider, is there something that meets their requirement here and saves them some of that complexity tax, might save them some money, some complexity, some time, or is the prize big enough for them that we can start to throw the kitchen sink at them in terms of resources, but also cost to deliver something more turnkey?
Yeah, and that's one of the interesting things is when things start to build out to that resource thing. And I am going to come back to that question, but we do have actually an interesting point here from Rafe. Thanks for the question. Statement here, Rafe. Actually, there's a question. We've got a question mark. This is the role of an enterprise architect: take the business vision and drive through into solutions. John, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I would agree, and I'd go further than that and say that it's the job of any software engineer to be aligned with the business and to be thinking about the business results. Devs, I'm a dev. I talk to devs all the time. Devs want to be at the cutting edge. They want to be working on the newest technology, the latest shiny thing that's coming out. So much so that there's a term called CV-driven development, where you're taking the latest technology to pad your CV so you can think about the next job. So are we technology-led? Certainly from an engineering perspective, I would say so. I was at MS Build recently. It's a huge developer conference, and Microsoft said they see developers as the primary sales channel now. They sell all their new shiny products through developers. They try them out. They do the tutorials. They do examples through them, and then they go to their business and say, look, this is what this can do, or they just implement it and incorporate it into the new products that are coming out. So yeah, very much so from an engineering perspective, we are try to be technology led and going forward. But yeah, Rafe's previous comment is that I wouldn't go to say we were a support function, but we should be strongly aligned with business objectives, like the best devs always are.
Yeah, I mean, like, I tend to sway to agree. Then I think there's a balance of it, right? I'm not a developer. The last thing I coded was HTML in 1999, and then WordPress came out, and I discovered I didn't need to use it anymore. But you know, so I'm all about low code, right? But I do like to make things, but what I also like to do is leverage the relationships I have. It's hence the reason why I created this community and have built it out, right? Is because through the relationships with people who can really lean in and have the assets that can bring things together. But it's about the developer community, and that's the whole investment with companies, with DevRel, like with Mark and the team do with Bellina, and Twilio have always done a phenomenal job with that as well. That the developer is without doubt the key asset in this space. And I would be absolutely lost without my colleagues, like in the role that I have, Oliver Hamilton. Every chance I get to bring him into a meeting, I will do, because that guy's just an absolute rock star. I can set the scene, but he's the one that really puts it in place for it. And it's really definitely helped with the opportunity working with customers. As you quite rightly say, John, I think they are. I hate using the term sales, right, because it sounds like a dirty word. But in regards to success in implementing, everybody's following the kind of dollar delivery side of things with it. Although there are some goodwill projects I've been working on recently, which are quite cool as well. Mark,
but I would say that the developer sometimes they feel this type of IoT products like a threat for them. Like, are they gonna do my job, so I'm gonna get fired? Or so yeah. I remember that, like, when I had my own company, the CTO and they feel that like we were their enemy. The CTO of other companies, that's tricky. So you need to know who is the what do you do if you do consulting or you do product, or what do you do? But then you need to know who is your audience and go there, because some departments can feel that you are a threat for them as well.
Yeah, actually, that's a very good statement. Yeah, Lucas?
That one. Because that's why I always underline when I meet with CTOs or other C-level executives that they are the domain experts of whatever they are driving, right? I'm just a technical guy from technology that can understand business and can create technological design based on the business needs, right? But if we underline that they are the domain experts, and we are not there to take their jobs, right? We just want to serve them to develop yet better solution to the end customers, right? And that basically puts everyone in the perspective that we are not fighting each other. We're not trying to show off who is smarter than who, right? We are just trying to meet the same goal. We are just doing it from two different ends, right?
Yeah, very much.
I have different examples that when I felt like that didn't happen, but I don't know.
Well, I think it's like the term of the internet of everything. I did some talks at Darlington College with their IT course and stuff last year, and the whole brief that I was given was, come and talk about the internet of everything and stuff like this. And I'm like, oh no, another term. But in some respects, when I reflected on the terminology and stuff, is like the Internet of Things. The thing that makes the Internet of Things work is actually people finding the problem, starting to come together. And as you quite rightly say, it's about winning key stakeholders over and demonstrating value. And, going back to Lucas's statement about, move away from that terminology of proof of concept, right? The high majority of them go off into a graveyard, especially in the current financial climate. It's about value. And if you can demonstrate the value, then you can keep building from finding your starting point with that. That's my personal view. And it is work in the areas that I'm working in at the moment, and totally applaud Lucas calling me out earlier before we came online using the term proof of concept. So Paul, I will be sending you a proof of value plan. Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. How do we help non-technologists understand IoT and get enthused to invest? It's very easy and the reason why I brought this question up is, and I'm terrible for doing it myself, is I get a little bit too enthused and I start talking about the expansion and how things connect them, and then I can see customers' eyes glaze over. So Paul, over to you. How should we communicate with you as a customer, as a buyer, to help you understand what we're talking about?
I think for me, it's about engaging with the business to really say the Internet of Things can help you resolve business problems or business concerns or productivity or efficiency, and as opposed to trying to sell the solution, try and sell the fact that the solution will resolve a problem that the business may or may not have. They may have it, but they just don't realize they've got it. I think we can resolve business problems that are either known or unknown. And I think really talking about support that it can give using business language rather than technological language would be a real help for the businesses to understand and not be frightened of the technology people, that they're there to support us trying to resolve our business problems. They're not there to sell us the Internet of Things. They're not there to sell us a technical solution. They're there to help us resolve a business problem. So it's saying the same thing, but using slightly different language that then removes that fear of technology people are coming to take my job. They're not. The technology people are here to support you identify your business problems, and then you will be left with a platform that'll help you resolve your business problems.
That's really good insight. Mark, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think removing the IoT concept should be the key. So if we see successful projects, websites, or even the boxes when you buy them, they don't mention IoT anywhere. Like, let's think on the Tesla car. Maybe it's the most connected car, right? And if you go to the website, you are not going to find IoT anywhere. Like the first IoT car, blah, blah, blah. No, it's no. There is nothing related with IoT there, or the Nest, or so. Yeah, I think removing the IoT concept from everything. No, if that project can help you to succeed and make money or save money, just remove the IoT concept there and just explain the product and how you can help them to succeed.
Do you know, that was one of the first questions I was going to ask, and I regret not doing it now for the show. And I was going to go around the table and say, what is your if you had to describe your grandparent, what is IoT? How would you describe it? Who wants to go first?
I'm pleased my grandparents are no longer with me.
Yeah, like I would say that IoT is just a data pipe, right? Because this is what it is at the very end. Like it allows you to use different devices to understand the environment, like using sensors, right? Send that data to some kind of backend, and then act on the data using actuators. So it's just a data pipe that needs some kind of logic on the backend or the device itself, and then it can impact the surroundings using actuators. So it's all it is, right? So IoT by itself does not provide any value, right? Going back to the conversation, it's just the enabler that you can use to leverage your current business to provide yet better value to your customers. But IoT by itself, it doesn't do anything. It's just going to send data back and forth without any real value.
Thanks for that, Lucas. Evan, how would you describe it?
Gosh, okay, let's find a reference point. Let's say farming. So I would say if you're running a farm, it takes a lot of people to keep an eye on all the livestock, all the grain levels, if all the machinery are working, and if you're only 3 people on the farm, you can't keep on top of it. Imagine you had a, omnipresent worker that could watch all your livestock, watch all your grain, watch all your machines, and tell you in advance if there's problems or it looks like there's problems. So effectively, we have something omnipresent, gathering information about all our resources and equipment and helping you make decisions, giving you insight. And it just happens to be technologies that I'm not going to bore you with because you're too old to understand.
Wow. I can't believe you just said that on a live stream. John, how would you describe it to your grandparents?
I'd say it's any device that is connected to the internet, trivially. So this Fitbit is connected to the internet via this mobile phone. So that is an IoT device. I would also add that it's possibly lower resource than you'd get on a PC or a server. So processing power is a lot less than what you'd have on your desktop. And maybe a complex or non-standard user interface. I think that would be my 3 things that define IoT for me.
Who have I missed? Mark, have I done you?
I know everyone said everything. I would say that it's something that gets context data through the sensors, can have actuators that sends data to humans. And then, yeah, it's connected at some point just to send the data that it's collecting and send the data from someone else. I remember, this paper that Mark Weiser wrote like 30 years ago in the 80s, I guess, or in the 90s, I don't remember, about the computer of the 21st century. And he was saying that the computer of the 21st century would allow you to do virtual interactions with a physical wall and physical interactions with the virtual walls. So I would try to explain this. Like, it's a thing that has sensors that collect data and send them somewhere else. You don't care. And then actually can get data that it's being shown as well in there on this thing, on this box.
Can I have one question comment? But because I love the statement that IoT have got complex interface, and my point on that is that it does complex interface because that interface used to be designed by technical people, not by business people, right? And this is what is changing. That more and more business-oriented people are actually working to make the interface of IoT, so the face of IoT, a bit more focused on humans, right? Not on the technology itself. So this is yet another example why we should really shift from technology focus to the more business and human-oriented focus.
Interesting. Paul, do you want to have a stab, or are we not resuscitating your grandparents?
No, I'll have a go. So I really like the omnipresent worker. So I think I'd describe it as, imagine your complex and difficult life is just made easier by something that cannot be seen, and will let you go and make decisions that are always going to be 99% of the time the right decision, because you've gathered all of the information is just there in front of you. You don't have to go seeking things, and you can make that right decision more often and more regularly.
Nice. And that was from a customer. You should be all ashamed of yourselves. I think Paul's was the best. Funny enough, I do almost feel like you also sort of described what sprang into my mind was the new Apple device that they announced. But I'm not going to go into that. Not for $3,500 in any case. I'm not going to promote that unless they send me one for free. But I mean, personally, the way that I sort of concept it and try to keep it in as few words as possible is it's an architecture bringing everything together that's connected. It's simple as that. And I think sometimes with the terminology of Internet of Things, I remember, what we would count as IoT today solutions that I worked on in Australia in the early 2000s was known as machine to machine. Well, in fact, it was telemetry before that. And then it became machine to machine, and then the machine to machine bubble burst with telecom. So they started to really jump onto the Internet of Things as a terminology as well. But in essence, the way that I describe it is it's an architecture of things connected, and then driving towards automation, autonomy, and so on and so forth as well. We've got some really good popped up here from everyone online. So Duncan, thanks for this one. I frequently draw a circle with my left hand. Let's work out what information is valuable and important to you. A circle with my right hand and figure out what we need to measure or control. Let us figure out the right way to build a system that will work for you. Nice. What are some sample personal use cases for IoT, real life impacts, or sample business processes that I can implement today? Lucas, I'll go to you on that one.
All right. Well, That's actually a great question, right? Because like technology is more or less solved problem right now, and the true value is in the business process, the business concept that you've got. So it's really hard to say, right? If you want to just start learning IoT, start playing with it, then you actually do not need any devices. Like you can create a bunch of virtual devices, connect them to some kind of backend, and test the scalability, test the fleet management, all those aspects, right? So this is the easy part. And the tricky part is if you've got real idea about the service or product that you want to build, then you need to basically start from that one, right? So start from things that are really important because they will make you fail if you succeed. And what do I mean by that? I've seen really a few projects that failed because they were too successful and they were not designed to scale good enough. They were not secure enough, and they basically failed, right? So if you want to start, you should start with decent understanding about the security aspects, some basic understanding about scalability aspects, fleet management, and all of that you can learn without any hardware devices, right? And once you've got those foundations, you can try to implement and design the architecture that will actually meet the business idea you've got. That's
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. Is there not an easy way of doing this? As a suggestion of using Amazon, as using Amazon devices, right? If you want to get started for personal projects, you can start to very easily buy low-cost light bulbs, plugs, so on and so forth. Create automation and autonomy actually using the Alexa app, and if you want to get even cleverer, you can actually start to create voice commands in on Amazon as well, very, very easily without any developer experience whatsoever. There's another device for the home that I found really interesting, and it's still going, which is over in the Netherlands, I think it is, called Homey, which is a great, it looks like just like an orb. And you can actually create workflows, so you can connect things and create workflows with it. And I had it, which I had to turn it off because the family got irritated by it. But every time I came home, it recognized when my phone connected to the Wi-Fi, and it would play Tenacious D. Won't tell you which song it was, but it would play Tenacious D when I walked into the house and stuff. It was funny for a few times it happened, and oh no, Dad's home. But I also got wrong for it as well, so I had to change the song. But you know, there are easy things that you can do with that to do it, and then it's about like sort of like, you know, the capabilities that you get with Bellina, right, Mark?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there are a lot of real life impacts. I don't know, at home, I have a solar panel that it's connected with the Raspberry Pi, and I know when the batteries are full or not, or what is happening with my solar panel. Or I have a weather station, or you can have a garden and just get some sensors. It depends on, as well as mentioned before, on your grade of development skills. If you have technical skills and you're a developer, maybe I would recommend to start with an Arduino Uno, which has a great community behind.
Yeah.
If not, you can start with a Raspberry Pi and start trying things that more advanced or more complex.
Yeah. Evan, are you seeing more developer kits, black boxes coming through, not just for consumer use, but for business use?
So I would say we are seeing a similar approach to modularity and integration in the B2B space arising that we had seen in the hobbyist space. So if you look at IFTTT as an example, if you look at the library of pre-certified connected devices and services that connect to those, increasingly we are seeing IoT platforms pop up in the market where they have pre-certified devices. So, you know, this might be, there's a company called Akenza that I came across a little while ago, and they have LoRa and telco services connected on the one side, connectors for AWS and Azure and everything else on the other side, and then a library of LoRa sensors providers where they've pre-integrated to understand the telegrams which they send, and also how to onboard those devices with QR and whatever else. So we are seeing increased modularity and, call it kind of one-click onboarding or zero-touch onboarding of some of this stuff in the B2B space. I mean, the one thing I would say to Oystein is, whether it's in personal life or business, IoT always generally resolves around an asset being a place, a thing, a person, a commodity, which has some value associated with its utility, or it's just generally being kept safe so you know where it is. So, if you kind of work backwards from that, I mean, in the home, a pretty big driver for people is the fact that their place costs money to run, whether it's in terms of energy and AC and power and gas, electric, all this kind of stuff. And you see some great solutions there, which, you can play with, the Amazon HomeKit stuff, Apple HomeKits and Amazon kits and whatever else, plug it into IFTTT and extend those workflows, or Zapier. Work with, I think, some open source project called Home Assistant as well.
Yeah,
they're great fun to get started from the home perspective and automation, all that kind of stuff.
Very good.
Yeah, Home Assistant is really nice, to start if you want to connect things at home, even you have a Raspberry Pi or similar, or a PC.
And I'm sure it works with Polina.
I haven't played with that yet. Actually, I'm gonna have to.
No, try it. Yeah, it's really nice. It's
You can
really
have
well
your own
designed.
little panel display on your tablet, put it on the wall. Buttons for automations.
I've got a few tablets lying around, actually. I'm a sucker for getting one every year. So interesting question for somebody new into the IoT space. I'm new to IoT space. Does IoT device need to have an API in order for me to connect into it? Mark.
It depends, no? Yeah, and for me, an API, it should be everywhere. So, but it depends on what you need. What you want to do with the data. So, depending on what you need to do, you need an API to connect with the device, and it depends if you want an API directly from the device. So you're playing with these as an edge device, or you want to have these connected, and you want an API from the database in the cloud where you're storing the data. So it depends on what do you need to do, and what do you want to achieve.
Yeah, and also it depends from the provider, doesn't it? Because like for example, some of the tools that we were talking about, the APIs are hidden behind the connections that are already available for it. Like the Homey device and like the Google, Amazons, and so on and so forth. They're already built into the apps, and it's basically a marketplace as such in regards to the connectivity for them as well. So some of them have already been made easy without you having to take the API and connect into it as well.
Exactly. The device needs to have some kind of interface, right? And
Yeah.
API is just one form of interface, pretty low level. So for the end user, that might be just typical user interface, right? With nice graphics without any APIs exposed.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'm going to jump into one of our other questions for tonight. Okay, here we go. When you start to consider the complexity with hardware, software, microservices, connectivity platforms, data scientists, security, AI, is it really worth the effort?
Well, your business case will tell you that, Paul.
Yeah.
Dig deeper, John. The camera's on you.
Well, yeah, you can make an estimate on how long all of that's going to take, and then you'll go, well, this is the cost. This will drive these benefits in terms of reduced manpower, increased efficiency, increased compliance, reduction of fraud or waste or loss or health and safety issues, whatever it is, whatever concern you're dealing with, and they all have pounds and pence values attached to them. And then you'll compare that and you'll say, well, what is the payback period? I mean, obviously that is very high level estimate of what you're doing, but that's your driver. Will it pay for itself?
Yeah. So I think what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, is it goes about the planning of the problem statement, like we talked about earlier in the show, understanding what the problem statement is, understanding what the return of investment is for that problem statement. And sometimes it is financial. It may be sometimes there's a budget put aside to solve that problem because it's the right thing to do. Like one of the things you mentioned there, John, health and safety as an example. But then there's also sort of return of investment by creating efficiencies. Time equals money, and so on as well. So it's that planning side of things, and I think it goes back to the statement that Lucas has made earlier in the show.
Yeah, proof of value. That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is that the whole engagement should pay for itself from the very beginning, right? And you should not be caught in that that you need to invest tons of money and then you really don't know about the returns. So if you start with the proof of value and the problem statement, then you basically know what you're after.
Yeah.
And then I would say as well, start small. You don't need to do everything on one. Just make MVPs and just iterate on that, and really get that the return of investment. No, it will come, because if you do like the big thing and it doesn't work, or the return of investment it doesn't happen, then it's really hard to iterate from that to something else. So I would recommend start with something small. No, I don't mean the number of devices, but I mean maybe the functionality. You don't need maybe to do everything, and then start iterating from that, and maybe you have the possibility to change your product or the direction, because maybe your hypotheses were wrong.
Yeah. No, I mean that totally resonates with me personally. It's one of the approaches that I like to take. Is as Paul knows, with the suggestions I've made, in collect the data. Right. Look at the points that you can collect the data. Then we can help with the business case on how this could be, how you could take the technology to create the efficiencies, and then look at what that investment is, and then build on it. Go by layer side of things. However, I am going to contradict myself. Right. I have had a number of experiences over the. God, I'm trying to do maths here quickly. 18 years, nearly, I think, in this space. Right. Is starting small with things like Raspberry Pis, right? Great for first side things, but if somebody in the business goes, well, it's working, why do we need to do something different with it? Then things can start to fail, because that expansion, that build out, that especially when it's in industrial climates and they're using Raspberry Pis here, there, and everywhere, which is not what they were designed for. Let's be honest, they were designed for classroom more than anything. That can be a huge staller in a business, really maximizing its potential as well.
I think for me, Paul, I think sorry, Mark.
No, go ahead.
I think
please.
one of the really interesting pieces is, I think the interesting piece is, yes, it's worth it, but that all depends on how you defining worth it. What is worth the effort? Is it the financial return that you're going to get on your investment? I think in terms of benefits, I like to describe them as there's a hard benefit and a soft benefit. So your hard benefit is what money are you going to return to the business, but then there's associated soft benefits, like with everything. You need to consider the entire platform and the entire scope of the project. And I think far too often the business is focused on what is the return on my investment and the pounds and pence. Yeah. But as a business, we always try to describe there's the return on the investment, the pounds and pence, but there's all these other associated benefits that we could potentially get from this solution that we're deploying. And at the very outset, you've got to be upfront with your service provider to say, these are the things that we'd like to resolve in this area of the business or in this department within the business. But how scalable is it? We will have these similar problems. Any particular warehousing problem that I have within my business, there's likely a business problem within the supply chain end of the function or the manufacturing side of the business. So how scalable is it? So I think the question, is it worth the effort, is very much on how as a business you describe your problem and what defines effort. Is it the financial return on investment, or is it all of the other associated things that you could get from the platform that you're putting into the business?
That's really insightful, Paul. Evan?
I mean, I think I think starting small is always going to cost less, but potentially going to have less immediate impact unless you're really in the sweet spot and you've identified a cliff edge and a black hole that's burning cash because you can't see the data around why it's happening, right? What I always tend to say to people is you need to figure out, firstly, are you that special as a customer that you fall outside of the common industry problems to where you need something super bespoke that's going to drive you down the garden path of expensive development resources? And is the prize big enough to attack the 10% of challenges you have beyond the rest of the market? If so, go for it. Or do you fit within having much of the same common industry challenges that you can build on with known blueprints, known integrations, known insights, and everything else? Generally speaking, if you address too many point tactical issues with IoT, and these can often end up being siloed between different lines of business in a company using different ISVs, you end up with islands. And whilst each solution can be cheaper individually, the cost of bringing it all together later can be difficult. So I would say, firstly, are you so special that you need to go down the path of being fully turnkey? Or is a good starting point identifying the common things? Because identifying a start small tactical challenge is very different to going on a journey where you've decided as a company you're going to become data driven in 10 years, have a data strategy, modernize your infrastructure, embed analytics at the core of your decision making, and become truly data driven. That will cost more in the long run, but it should be a top level, a top down decision that it's worth it. Otherwise, it's a bottom up line of business. It's worth it for this problem, but let's try and be extensible and make sure this architecture can translate so the rest of the business can layer their challenges onto this platform as well.
Excellent.
And then something interesting as well, at least is my recommendation to companies, is to avoid the lock-ins.
Yes.
I think it's very alineated with what you said. So if you don't want to get locked in or get married with a company and that you cannot leave, no. Or even if the company shut down for whatever reason, no, and you're a prisoner there, you have a problem as a company. So try to avoid the lock-ins as much as possible when you just build kind of, or a product that it's kind of, or a platform that's kind of complex like that.
Yeah, I mean, that happened in a real sense recently where Google Cloud Platform pulled out of the IoT space and they gave you a year to back out. That you were locked into that. You need to move your entire system and refocus it to a different platform provider.
I think that's a really valid point, John. I think, when Google started to make their bit of a step backwards from IoT, which was, 4 or 5 years ago, I think that actually put a bit of a stir in the market because, when I was out validating for an edge platform that I was representing back then, the feedback I was getting from customers, there was this shift starting to head towards wanting to be more dependent on open source platforms that have been productized by companies rather than being stuck proprietary. Because if that company did decide to stop, like Google did, as an example, then they weren't kind of held to ransom or kind of up the creek. They could actually just go and work with somebody else that was building on top of, or that could build on top of what was already there with the open source software. So, not being held by that proprietary system. I did find that sort of move with Google really interesting. And then, there's been a number of companies that have been sort of stepping back, like Twilio have moved their business over or sold their business to Core, as an example from a connectivity side. And then, in fact, we've got just over 5 minutes. One of the other conversations I wanted to sort of finish on was the confusion of IoT. So, there's a number of areas of IoT that when you talk to customers, they get an awfully lot confused. Like when I've spoken with people and I've mentioned IoT, they have straight away jumped onto SIM card connectivity, and they think that's what it's all about. Do you see that as a confusion in the market with the term IoT and with it being so wide and breadth and full of breadth? Does that marketing machine confuse things for people? Mark, I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, it depends on who is your partner, your IoT partner. If your IoT partner is a telco, everything, the central piece of the cake will be the connectivity platform and the SIM cards, and etc., etc. So this is why I mentioned before to try to avoid the lock-ins. If you don't have any lock-in, or your IoT partner is not selling you a lock-in, then yeah, probably you will have more chances to be successful on this.
Yeah. Paul, customer, have you found some of the terminology that you've seen and the way that people talk about Internet of Things confusing?
I think as a business, you need to do your homework first. So our distribution director around about 18 months ago said, go and investigate the Internet of Things. And that's such a broad statement. Where do you even start? But I think what businesses need to do is look for something that's going to resolve your problem. And if that happens to be the Internet of Things, then you're probably going to find out after you've started partnering with somebody. Mm-hmm. And I think the whole term, the Internet of Things, is so wide that everybody just gets lost in what is it. It doesn't describe anything. Mm-hmm. In my head, it may well do, but it's not describing anything. It's just saying there's the internet and there's some things are brilliant. Yeah. What does that mean to anybody in a business?
Yeah,
and it's about really understanding what do you want to resolve, and if that happens to be something in the Internet of Things space, then brilliant. If it doesn't, also brilliant, because you resolve your problem. Yeah. So I think ultimately what I'm saying is do your homework first, and understand what do you want.
Yeah, just a bit of a pointer for people watching the show and stuff is, where did you go to find out and educate yourself?
The first point is always open Google and search what is the Internet of Things. That had to be the starting point. And then you get God knows how many thousands of pages that tell you all of the things that it could possibly do. And a lot of it was just clicking through what solutions are out there that happen to be in the Internet of Things space.
Yeah.
And then drilling down into going, all right, there's a solution that could resolve, and it could be telematics, which is now the Internet of Things. And we've got those in all of our vehicles that run all over the country every day. Mm-hmm. And very, very quickly you learn actually all the Internet of Things is finding out some data and putting it in a presentable format where a human can then go make a decision about the data that the human has been delivered. Mm-hmm. I think that's where I got to very, very quickly is it's very, very hard. Businesses are generally data rich, but we haven't got hundreds and hundreds of people sifting through data. I think what the Internet of Things said to me was, we can make that far simpler. All of that data that you've got as a business, we will take all of that in and describe it in a much quicker, more defined way than you could ever do with humans looking at the data.
Yeah. Excellent. Hey, thanks for that. You were supposed to say you would come to IoT North community and we had educate you, but it's all right. Your other answer was good as well. Hey, but hey, we're into the last minute. Thank you very, very much, everybody, for joining the session. We've had some great
stuff questions, great interaction. Thanks, everybody.
Fantastic,
brilliant.
Absolutely fantastic. We'll definitely do another one of these sessions in the not too distant future. Mark, what's your talk about in July?
So it's very alienated with what we were talking. So actually, when I started programming in the 90s, or at the end of the 90s, I was a developer and I wanted to get into the web development when it was like the web boom. And I reduced the friction of getting into the web thanks to a stack called LAMP, Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. So now with Belen ambassadors and other people from the community, we are trying to bring like a stack to reduce the friction to developers to get into the IoT and to don't start with with how should I start? No, because people has ideas, but they don't know how to start. So we created this concept. A developer from the community from Liverpool, actually, Alex Lennon, created this concept of the Ming stack that actually other people was using it, which it's to start with MQTT, InfluxDB, Node-RED, and Grafana. And with these 4 services running on your edge devices, you can start doing multiple things as you're going to learn.
Excellent. Really look forward to it. Paul, thanks very much for your time. Mark, Evan, John, Lucas, and I'll even say congratulations myself on this one. Great session. Thank you very much for your time. Look forward to the first Tuesday of July. We will have Mark online at 6 p.m. We'll be promoting that in the next couple of weeks. Please do register and sign up on our website, IoTNorth.uk. All of our shows are listed there, and you can get access to be able to stream them from there or join and watch by the webinars. And on that, I shall say good night. Thank you, everyone.